All right, Jeff here. I'm back again. What is this? Like the third or fourth video he's posted today? What's wrong with him? Well, you know, it's been one of those days, and there's been a lot of contests going around, and oftentimes I'll see the contests that other people post, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of tough, or that's going to take a lot of work to try to figure out. I don't have the time. But a lot of the ones I've been seeing recently, I've immediately been able to say, hey, I know what I could do for that. And so anyway, this is going to be a contest entry for Raul Serrano, his 100 subscription contest. He's a new one. I have a link below. You can check him out. He's a young guy that's into a lot of metal. So obviously there's a lot of similarity there, as I'm one of those metal guys, though I'm not as young as him. But he likes a lot of the same stuff, and he plays guitar. And I just discovered his channel recently because somebody else did a contest video, and so I bounced over there. And anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. The contest is to show 5 bands of a single genre. And they can't be 5 of the same band. So you got 5 different bands of the same genre of music, whether it be thrash metal or death metal or country or rap or whatever. If you want to get 2 entries, show 10. So I decided to totally go a different route, maybe blow some minds of some people who watch my channel, because I am, obviously, if you watch me for any length of time, I am mainly, as far as what I buy on vinyl, mainly a metalhead, with variances in there of different styles of rock and metal and hard rock and Christian rock and all that stuff. The other day I showed some thrift store finds, and some people were like, wow, we didn't know that about me. So I'm going that route because there is a different side of me, and I don't show this stuff because I don't get a lot of it on vinyl. Not that I don't want to, but I spend so much money on rock and metal that it's hard to, unless I ran across stuff that was like really, really affordable, I don't jump at this style, though I really would like to. So what we're talking about today is jazz.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands. Jazz hands.
As I found in the thrift store the other day and showed a couple Dave Grusin albums and Ponte and stuff like that, I showed some jazz. And some people may be like, wow, Jeff listens to jazz too. I've mentioned some of the big band stuff in the past. So I'm going all jazz today. I'm going all CDs today. That's another oddity too, because again, I don't have a lot of these on vinyl, and not that I wouldn't love to. But today's going to be Jazz Day. I've got 10 different jazz artists. Yes, I have that many in my collection. I have more than that. I picked 10 of some of my favorites. So let's get right to it. 10 of the jazz genre, 10 different artists. Now, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos about when I talk about jazz, this is the first band that I ever got into. I was in the military. I was jamming with some guys on bass that I ran into, playing drums. They were playing guitar. They liked rock. I liked rock, and they liked jazz, and they turned me onto this band, Spyro Gyra. Breakout was the first. Get that out of the glare. Spyro Gyra's Breakout was the first, pretty much the first jazz album I ever bought. Still one of my favorite albums to this day. I probably know these songs backwards and forwards. I have everything Spyro Gyra has ever released. I have it all on CD except, I think, the last 2 albums. They have one, their most recent album was called The Vinyl Tap. It's kind of cute. I think it was cover tunes. I haven't bought that yet. And they have one before that, which was something Sessions. I forget. I've listened to them all online. I have them all except for those. Love Spyro Gyra. They're from New York. When we lived in New York, my wife is from there. When we lived there, I saw these guys in concert. I want to say at least 3 times. I know at least twice for sure. Maybe 3 times. Love these guys. Up next is probably the second jazz band that these guys, and these are mostly all contemporary jazz. The same friends turned me on to this. Obviously, as a drummer, they said you're going to love Billy Cobham. Now, Billy Cobham has a long history in the in the 70s of jazz fusion and a lot of that stuff. I like some of that stuff, but when it gets into the 80s, it becomes more contemporary jazz. This album and Power Play that came out right after are still two of my favorites. They're like most other jazz contemporary. They have some cool drum fills and stuff, but they don't have a lot of improv type stuff, which some of his older stuff does, and I like a lot of his older stuff, Spectrum and all that kind of stuff. But Power Play and Warning, two of my favorites. Now I'm going to show this, and everybody's going to gross out, but I actually have everything within reason. Not a lot of the collections or holiday albums, but all of his main albums I do own. Kenny G. Love his style, love his playing, and I used to have the live video concert, Kenny G Live, and I just loved that. I used to show friends at the bass solo, and it was so awesome, but love it. Great stuff. In the past few years, he's done a lot of, not a whole lot of stuff that's really new. There's been some stuff with vocals and things along that line, greatest hits and like I say, holiday albums, but all of his main albums up through maybe the past 10 years I do own. That's one of his earliest ones. Talking about saxophone players, Nelson Rangel, another similar saxophone player, maybe not, as maybe a little more energetic at times, but still sax, smooth jazz. Saw him in concert. Put on a great show. Love it. Also while I was in New York. Another saxophone jazz player. Jazz sax players seem to be the big thing. My wife loves it, so we listen to a lot of that. But Richard Elliott, I saw him in concert also. A great, he's got, kind of at times, kind of a Latin flair at times. I have a handful of his records. Great stuff. Then you get into some guitar-driven jazz. You got the Rippingtons. I have pretty much everything they've ever released because I love Russ Freeman and the Rippingtons. Sadly, I've never seen them live. This is one of the early albums. I think one of the first ones I ever got before I went back and got all of their discography. This band, I always find, you hear them referenced as different styles. I've always lumped them in jazz. I've always put them in my jazz section, but at times they borderline into like a fusion rock. It's instrumental. It's got some guitar-driven stuff. I feel like it's a jazz fusion. All I know is I love it. I've got both of the main albums that they have. Gamelan. Like I say, they have another album out, which I think, but they've been styled slightly different. But this album and the other one, which I can't remember the name of, are two of my favorites. I remember way back when these came out, in the record store that I used to go to where I buy all my heavy metal, they used to have this, and I used to see it, this and the other album, and I just thought the artwork on the album was so cool. I probably picked it up a dozen times, had no desire to buy it because I didn't know what it was, but loved the look of it. Now I love these albums. I'd love to have those on vinyl. Talking about drums, talking about just amazing stuff. The Chick Corea Electric Band. I mentioned them in one of my previous videos too. I have some Chick Corea Chick Corea vinyl. Piano playing, it tends to be piano centric and piano heavy. The Electric Band it's similar, but it's got the Electric Band has the whole kit and caboodle. It's got all the instruments. It's not mellow as much as just some of the piano stuff. One of my favorite drummers, Dave Weckl, on drums on the Electric Band. I mentioned in the previous video I talked about jazz that it's the Chick Corea Acoustic Band. Same guys playing acoustic instruments, acoustic stand-up bass and stuff. It's more improv, and I don't like it as much. It kind of is. I just don't like improv as much. I love the songs like this. Love Chick Corea Electric Band. And speaking of Dave Weckl has a bunch of solo albums, which I believe I have and own all of. I might have missed some in the past couple years because I haven't looked, but I have everything up until at least a decade ago or so. Phenomenal drummer, one of my all-time favorite drummers. He's up there with even the rock drummers that I appreciate. When I list my favorite drummers, Dave Weckl is one of them, up there with Mike Portnoy and stuff. He is phenomenal. I got to see him in concert because a handful of years ago, 20 or so years ago, Neil Peart of Rush did a Buddy Rich tribute, two different records with all kinds of different drummers and some of the original guys from the Buddy Rich Band, and they did Buddy Rich hits with a bunch of different drummers. I mean, all kinds of names. Even the guy Matt Soren or whatever, Guns N' Roses, but Kenny Aronoff and Steve Gadd and Dave Weckl and of course Neil, and just a who's list of drummers. Great set of albums. I love those remakes of the Buddy Rich classics. And then they put together an East Coast Buddy Rich tribute band and a West Coast Buddy Rich tribute band. And the East Coast Buddy Rich tribute band has Dave Weckl on drums. And sure enough, I lived in New York. They came to New York, the Bottom Line Club. I drove into the city. I sat at a table right in front of the bass drum, and I sat in awe, and listened to, and watched him play amazingly from right at the foot. I mean, we were like right at the stage front. And sitting behind us at a table was Soupy Sales. If you're too young to know what that Soupy Sales is, look him up. He's no longer with us. And at a table near him, Buddy Rich's daughter. It was an amazing night. It was an amazing show. Dave Weckl, amazing drummer, amazing jazz music on his own. And then last is another one by Ponte, which I showed, the album I got the other day. This is one of the CDs I own. I also have his anthology CD set, and then I have an album from his from the 90s. Got some like electric violin stuff on it. I really dig that album. But his 70s stuff is very good, and I love the violin type jazz. There you go, 10 jazz albums from Jeff. Yeah, he's not a one-trick pony. He's not just a metalhead. He's got some diversity there. He second-guessed me again. Thanks a lot, Raul, and hopefully you get some more subscriptions from this, and this entry is now in the bag. Rock on. Or jazz on.